Of course. Is it next Shabbos? Is it Chav Beis tonight, right? Tonight's Chav Beis. Shavuot is less than 2 weeks, so it has to be. I'm saying it's Chav Beis. Shabbos is Chav Hey. So of course.
It's okay. I can have a little of welcome everybody, and I want you to accept the list. I didn't get to thank Shlomo for being here. So thank you so much. And Baruch Hashem, I just arrived this afternoon, so the Sunday class at 7:30 in the morning, and the 12:30 class. Shlomo's teaching is going to be resuming. Tomorrow is the value of it, right? So the Shlomo class is going to resume next week, and the prayer class also, 7:30 in the morning. Really nice to sit down for 7:30 in the morning.
I need some lectures.
Anyway, prayer. All right.
All right. We gotta sing this niggun again, not this one, but last week this niggun came down. I must have sang it like 20 times this week. So many different words. Trying to figure out, and it just shows you, just stick to the way it came down. It's gonna go back to the way. Shlomo, did you hear this? The one from last week? This is the one from last week. It's looking for a pig. From last week. All right. So stick to the way it came down. But this is like. If you hold back, you have to pay twice as much as whatever you were told you have to pay for this year. So what does that mean if you sing loud? I don't know. If you don't hold back, are you put to not? Not my business. But וישידן חדש שמחוגנו לשמך הגודל הזבחיה שידן חדש שמחוגנו לשמך הגודל הזבחיה שידן חדש שמחוגנו לשמך הגודל הזבחיה שידן חדש שפוגעים לשמך הגודל והזיה יחד כולם הוידו והמליכו ועמדו אוי השם ימלא לעולם ועד יחד כולם הוידו והמליכו ועמדו אוי השם ימלא לעולם ועד na 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 יחד כולם ידעו והמליכו ועמדו אוי השם ימלא לעולם ועד na 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 יחד כולם הוידו והמליכו ועמדו אוי השם ימלא לעולם ועד תדידי עייני da 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 ya da ya da ya oh da 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 ya da oh da 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 ya da ya do tay Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Oh, yeah, da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Shikoyach, everyone. Thank you. With such harmony, such peace. Sing here for hours with everyone. Sing for hours and hours here in this room.
I got all night.
Such a taiva to not let go of the guitar. I want to thank everyone for coming because, personally speaking, this has been the strongest real song I ever had in my life. And it's because of you guys. It's because of this place. It's because of the Mesiras Nefesh that everyone has here. To not compromise on whatever they thought Sfirat Omer was before this year. And it's like I never felt Pesach as much as I do this year. It's such a weird thing. The whole thing of Sfira is to understand what happened to us Seder night anyway. But thank you so much to everyone that's been coming and singing and sharing and bringing so much hitchadshut, so much newness. There's so much newness in the air. It means the world. It means the world. But tonight, I want to take whatever we did and go like as if so much deeper, like last week was kindergarten. So much deeper. We'll sing with the shit, we'll sing a bit more, but Rav Shalom just mentioned Shabbos Mevarachim. It's Sivan. Shavuos is around the corner. It's around the corner. Lag BaOmer, so much. Like we spoke about Lag BaOmer this week. Yom Yerushalayim next week. Shavuos too. It's crazy. So much. So much. So first of all, tomorrow night is Esti's Abba's yahrzeit. Learning tonight should be Le'ilui Nishmas. Zelig Ben David. Shev Nachas. With children and grandchildren. Is great-grandchildren or not yet? Mm-hmm. Is there there aren't great-grandchildren too. I continue learning for the Refuah Shlema, speedy recovery of Michal, Moshe Ze'ev ben Yehudit, Shoshana Reza Bas Ahula, Nassim Daniel ben Malka, Alter Baruch ben Sarah, and please insert all the names that unfortunately are still on our mouths. This has been a very heavy week. Sometimes when you least expect life to just come and chop you and grab you, it happens. And there's nothing you can do but just be in the moment. Earlier this week, we had a concert in a place called Ma'ale Rechavam, which had a few of its homes demolished last week. And the area where we actually set up shop, where they put the quasi-stage, was made out of ruins from a demolished home, which was right in back of us. And it used to be that the anger and the frustration, it could be directed, because it could be very easy. Goyim hate us. The world, they hate us. So the anger for so many years, it's very easy to be directed. Wow, there's still anti-Semitism in the world, right? Even though everything's from Hashem. So it's like there's always this weird thing, like, if it's from you, how could it be? Whatever. But it gets 5 million times more complicated when you don't want to direct the anger towards the source of where the destruction came from. So I give us all a bracha that the learning that we do tonight should lead to one word. Bless you. The learning that we're doing tonight should lead to one very, very beautiful, important, and crucial word for our existence, and that word is called Behirut. Behirus Halev, the clarity of the heart, just clarity. Such clarity, conviction, clarity, Behirut. It's really, the whole notion of Behirut is what's going to take place Shavuos night on Har Sinai. Parshat Behar began with the whole real intense approach to Mount Sinai. Parshat Behar, Melishon Behirut, the mountain, Behirus Halev, the calmness, the just this notion of it's just clear to me, not how things work, but that things are working. And I have to find, in the course of being sure that everything's working out, I have to find when exactly my nakuda is to pop my head in that street and say, Ad Masai! Until when? But that's part of everything being perfect. See me? Thank you. That's part of everything being That's part of everything being perfect, like this. One. There's so much to say tonight, but tonight I want to share with you a transcript which Baruch Hashem, I had the zchus of just finishing right before I got here, and it's my favorite days is when you get to work on one of these transcripts and try to play around with it while you hear his voice, softly touching, editing, but really it's very raw material. This is Reb Shlomo speaking many years ago, maybe about 25 years ago, right before Shavuos, right before Parshat Bamidbar. And up until now, the last two classes, 2 out of 3, were focused directly on what am I doing with Sfirat HaOmer? What is the deal? What am I doing every night? Why do I say Harachaman Yachzir Lanu Avodat Beit HaMikdash Limkoma? Why do I speak about the Beis HaMikdash? We learned 2 weeks ago. Last week we spoke about other things that had Rabbi Akiva and other inyanim of kavod, giving honor, the honor of waiting, 2 levels of waiting. But now, since this is the last time that in this setting we're going to be getting together till Shavuot, now we're going, this is it. Okay, it's been a nice, how many weeks? It's been 5 weeks. So you all know that the last 2 weeks, really the last 3 weeks, but we're already in the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks towards Mount Sinai. These are the weeks when you realize that your boundaries, that your boundaries are meaningless. Whatever you thought you could be, you realize already that was just pushed much further and deeper. However I frame myself, meaning I can only be this holy, or I can only reach this much, you realize the whole thing of Sphira is that as you're going along, and as you're connecting to what the whole point of waiting, and like Reb Nosson says in the Likutei Halachos, that the whole mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer is a mitzvah of tshuka, of creating passion. He says we're commanded to have passion. That's what Reb Nosson says. It's an amazing thing. The mitzvah of Sphira is not a mitzvah. You're not doing anything besides you have a mitzvah of becoming passionate. So when you drive home the notion of passion in your godly service, in your avodat Hashem, when it's about passion, what does passion do to you? It makes all limitations of who you thought you were break down. Shukah, the ishbitzker can be said in one word, the shukat hanefesh. When you develop passion of the heart, it's like very simple. Before you're in love, so you have a concept of love, and you think, well, I could only go this far. But then when you're in love, what happens to you? The passion breaks down all the borders of which you thought, oh, I can only love this much, I can only do this much. So if that's the way it is with the relationship between husband and wife, how much more so is that with thinking, how far could I go? How deep can I go? Whatever I thought, like that's what I said. The last 2 weeks were gewalt, but I pray that was kindergarten compared to where we're going to go tonight. Now I realized I have high aspirations. We're not going to get through this whole thing, but it's never, definitely take this home and cry over it for a few hours and then learn it, and then cry over it again. But tonight, Reb Shlomo is going to show us how, based on the Haftarah of Bamidbar, and based on everything else we've been doing during Sfirat HaOmer, how our definitions of how far we could go are absolutely meaningless. They mean nothing. I don't even know who put those boundaries, those definitions of how high I could fly, how infinite I could become. But those things have got to go as we get closer to Har Sinai. They just got to go. The famous, you look at these videos when like a Lubavitch Shliach brings one of his big donors to meet the Rebbe. Like it's happened so many times of Shluchim, I don't know, from Costa Rica, from New Mexico, from Paris. They come, they meet the Rebbe, and the Shliach says to the Rebbe, this is Mr. So-and-so, he gave $3 million last year, right? And what's unbelievable is that the Rebbe looks at him and says, so next year you'll be giving 4. Right? And it wasn't like, he wasn't trying to make him do anything but show him that in Olam Hazeh, when it comes to being on fire for God, these things called fences are meaningless. Meaningless. So first of all, I give us all a bracha. We should have a problem like that we only gave 3 million and next year we can give 4 million. But now, really, when it comes to the nefesh, friends, you think that you know your boundaries? You think you know your limits? This whole world is all about being surprised over and over again, being totally shocked as to, are you kidding me? This is me? Are you kidding me? If you'd show me this video of this person a year ago, a month ago, 2 weeks ago, I'd say, oh, that frum freak, he drank, he drank the Kool-Aid, look at him, and yet we see that we keep on shocking ourselves. We keep on shocking ourselves. First of all, and we spoke about this last night and 2 nights ago, you know what the greatest shock in the world is? Is that, how many times have we despaired before? Has anyone ever despaired? I never despaired. But like Reb Nachman says, "En yeush ba'elam klal." You know why Reb Nachman says there's no such thing as despair? Because we're back. Meaning, whatever I thought was desperation is shtuyot. I'm back. I've despaired 5,000 times, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm still here. You and I are still here. That should be enough of a wake-up call to show us that our definition of how far we could go with being close to Hashem and getting deeper with the Torah is meaningless. It means nothing. It's still a remnant of Egypt. It's still a remnant of slavery. Mamish, it's still a remnant of shiabud, of being enslaved. It means nothing. We're too scared to admit to it. Why? Because it's like, oh, I'm going to get caught up in gaiva. I'm going to get caught up in foolish, unhealthy and unholy pride. That's the Yetzer Hara coming to you and saying, come on, go for it. Show how much gaivadik you are. It's all Hevel Havalim. It's all still Egypt. It's still Mitzrayim. It's still Babylon. Still not. It's not Eretz Yisrael. It's not Yerushalayim. Ke'ir shechubra la'yachta. What does that mean? David HaMelech says Yerushalayim was like a city that was chubra la'yachta. It was I don't know how you even say it in English. Chubra la'yachta. It was connected all together as one. You know what that means? Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is that it's going to connect. Yerushalayim is the place that connects me to all those places I never thought could become godly in my being. And I realized, oh my God, in that department, I'm in touch with Hashem, and in that area in life, I'm in touch with Hashem. The Torah reaches me there. The Torah, like we learned 2 weeks ago, the Torah reaches me here. The Torah reaches me in that department too. Oh my God, I never knew the Torah can reach me here and reach me there. Where does this come from? So the last 2 nights we've been learning where it comes from based on Reb Tzadok, a Kohen of Lublin. Reb Tzadok Abinowitz, the Kohen of Lublin. Tonight we're going to be learning it based on the first pasuk in the Haftarah of Parashat Bamidbar. First pasuk in the Haftarah Bamidbar might be the strongest pasuk in the Tanakh. Well, definitely in Nevi'im. Let's just say Nevi'im for now. Definitely in the prophets. And that's what Reb Shlomo is going to begin with. So please pass these around and please don't look forward. As we always ask everyone, if we could please just learn this together. I'll try as much as I can. All right, let's check. Can we do it a little bit faster, just getting the papers to the back? Because every second is really, really intense right now. Sometimes this stuff takes longer than Brother Satan has so much fun with just putting up the papers. It's unbelievable. All right, Chavra, I'm inviting everyone right now to absolutely forget that there's something called Wi-Fi, like inner Wi-Fi. You know, like antennas we're able to attract so much. Sometimes like it's getting clearer and clearer. There used to be tefillahs before you learn, please God, let me be connected to what I'm learning today. That tefillah is like so much more intense because it's so easy to not be where you are, you know? It's so easy to not be where you are. It's unbelievable. So B'ezrat Hashem, me included, let's all just be here. And if you don't have it, please look with a friend or open your heart and listen with your heart. Reb Shlomo says like this. The Haftarah Bamidbar begins V'haya mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol hayam. Asher lo yimod. There's going to be a lot of typos tonight because this is mamish just a few minutes ago. Asher lo yimod velo yisaper. And the number of Israel will be numberless. Right? Asher lo yisaper. The number of Israel will be numberless. Strange. The number is a non-number. And then it says, V'haya b'mkom asher ye'amer lahem lo ami atem, ye'amer lahem b'ni kel chai. And at that very place where people will tell you that you are not God's people, it's happened once or twice in Jewish history, God will tell you, you are children of the living God. So look what he says. So even if I wouldn't say anything, it's already mind-blowing, right? You could just look at this first pasuk in the Haftarah. What do you need anyone to say anything about this? The first pasuk alone is enough to go nuts. First of all, that our number is that we have no number, and that whenever someone says to you, you're not a child of God, let it be clear to you, you are a child of God. Now I'm just going to jump way ahead, because I don't know if we're going to get there, but I want to say right now that Reb Shlomo is going to tell us, eventually, you're going to be that person that's telling you you're not really a child of God. And you have to find it in yourself to tell yourself, oh yes, I am. Remember I told you the Vort of the Rishner has such a beautiful Torah on Kedoshim, about what it means to be holy. Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. The Rishner says it's so good. My brother and I learned this, we started dancing. This was so high. It says, Yachol kamoni. You could be, God says, be holy because I am holy, right? So the Midrash says, Yachol kamoni. Like, anyone can be like holy, like because God is holy. Like we always say, what does that mean? God says, be holy because I'm holy. It's like God saying, create the moon and the stars because that's what I do also. Obviously, we're not understanding what that means. Talmud lomar ki kadosh ani. The Rishner says, Tilmad lomar ki kadosh ani. Learn to walk around saying to yourself all day long, Ki Kadosh Ani. When you walk around, the Rishner's words, can live off that forever, no? No? Zusha, that Rishner? That's unbelievable. Tilmad lomar, Ki Kadosh Ani. Learn to say, to walk around saying all day long, Ki Kadosh Ani. Learn to say, I am holy. I am holy. So it'll come a time, Reb Shlomo says, that each person says to themselves, you are not a son of God. And you have to answer right back and say, oh yes, I am. Don't be scared to sound crazy. These opposing thoughts happen all day long anyway. You might as well try to work it out when it matters the most, right? So Reb Shlomo says like this, basically it's simple Torah. Of course, this is simple, right? Because it's so true. He was saying this, I wish you heard the audio, as out of like a pliya. It's like, well, this is simple because it's so true. What's the deepest depths of our hearts? The deepest depths of our heart is that on one hand, we are living a very finite, limited life. Listen to these words. This is so special. And everyone look inside, it's third paragraph. Second line, towards the end of the second line and the third paragraph. When I don't sleep, I can't function the next morning. Someone came to the old Lubavitcher Rebbe and said, I would like to study all night, and then tomorrow I'll be a different person. So the Rebbe said, yes, you'll be different. Everybody will be learning and you'll be sleeping. So you have to sleep. You have to eat. You cannot be at two places at the same time. That's the way God designed the Ben Adam, the humanity, right? On the other hand, Reb Shlomo says, I have such an urge to be infinite. I'd like to be in 15 places at the same time. Why just 2? And you know something? I wish the world would be infinite. I wish the world would be infinite. The problem is that I keep on knocking my head against the wall. Why are there so many walls in the world? Now, walls of what? Walls which prevent me from feeling like I'm infinite and that the world is infinite and that we can do so much more than whatever we're capable of. Why do I keep on knocking my head against the wall means, why do I always come to a stumbling block? If I have such an urge and such a desire to shine a Gevalt, why Shouldn't that be enough to start shining? Why are there so many walls? You know what it is to be infinite? That I can do everything in the world. Do you know what a wall is? You can go so far, and that's it. That's how much. Sometimes you love somebody very much, and suddenly you hit the wall. Deep down inside, what are you crying about? Why isn't everything infinite? What he's saying here is that sometimes you love someone so much, but you see that your love isn't penetrating their deepest depths, and you're wondering, how could it be that they don't know how much I love them? How could that be? They don't see that I'm connecting to Netzach, to eternity? How could it be? They don't smell, they don't feel my love. Or, you know what, let's go now the other side. It's a very deep avoda to stop yourself for 1 second and say, how could it be that I don't feel people's love for me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I feel people's sincere caring, echpatiyut for me? Why don't I let them in? What's that about? Why isn't everything infinite? Sometimes we love people so much and we wish they would be infinite. But then suddenly we find that they also have walls. They're also finite. By the way, that hurts the most. You know what? The next paragraph will explain why that hurts the most. Look at this. Sometimes we're hearing stories about Rebbes, such holy tzaddikim. And then suddenly we come up on a story which, you know, we hear something about them or we see something about them, like, what a disappointment. What a disappointment. He's talking about living people, right? So he's also finite, this person that I put on such a madriga. What am I going to do now? Mm-hmm. Has that ever happened to anybody? Happened to me it happened to me 2.5 hours ago. I'm not kidding. Some guy, I was getting a drink in one of the makolets here, and some guy came inside. He said, "Bo, yesh li esek itcha. Come, I have some business with you." I never saw this guy in my life. He said, "Come with me right now." So, you know, I smelled heavy alcohol, and I'm like, "Oh God, do I have to be holy right now? Can I just be like, you know, the LA boy that doesn't want to, you know, just wants to stay away from bad people and bad stuff? Why do I have to like imagine that he's Eliyahu Navi? Right now, I don't want to think he's Eliyahu Navi. Come on, right now, lo bali, it's lo matim li, enough." So I'm like, okay, put your infinite on and go with this guy, right? So he starts walking. He's like, "Boze, kach daka, come here. It'll take a second." I'm thinking the whole time, do I leave my phone on if my wife needs to find me in a cellar right now or something like? These are the thoughts that I'm going through my head. But now I'm saying, Shlomo, if you live like this, you'll never be open for Gilui Eliyahu, for the revelation of Eliyahu Hanavi. So I didn't really give it up. It's probably 2.5 hours ago. And he says to me, Bo, he's like, Bo, ot shalosh dlatot, another 3 walls, and we're walking, like, oh my God, another 3 doors. Suddenly he says, Chakeh, and he takes a key out and he opens up in the middle of the shuk this huge machsan, this huge warehouse of ancient Sfarim. I'm like, and I knew, and by the way, this Torah, you should know, I was already with this a few hours ago. I'm like, will I be able to share this or not later? Like, what is this gonna be right now with this guy, right? He takes me and he's like, and he's very angry, very gvurdik. So I'm like, okay. I start looking through, and I'm like, oh my, here, this is one of them actually. This is from 100 and something years ago. It really was a thing. He says to me, I have to get rid of this machsa. I have to get everything out of here. It was piles and piles of old svarim and tiny little tefillin that are like 100 years old with parchments the size of like, it's crazy. I'm looking in here, but something smelled weird. So I'm like, he says to me, Bo, kach, bo, mani ralachat, huh?
You really smell weird? Was it a weird smell?
Well, these books do have like a weird old smell. No, something fishy. We were next to the shuk. Everything smelled fishy. So I don't know. Wait to end the story. If you want the address. So he says to me, "Kach ma sheta rotzeh, bo ta tireh." תלך עם זה כמה שעות, ואז תגיד לי אם זה עובד. Says, take some of these, see if it works for you, and after a few hours, then you'll let me know. Like, what is this? Mamish, this is Mamish what happened. So I'm sitting there, he's like, "Achshav teshev," and he says, "Now sit down." I'm like, no, I have to meet somebody. Huh? Maybe I prevented him from revealing himself because I kept on saying, "Tishma, אני לא יכול, אני צריך מישהו מחכה לי עכשיו." He's like, he says to me, "אתה רוצה בן זכר?" He says, "Do you want a son?" I'm like, oh, sit down now. I told him I have 2 daughters. He said, "Of course I want a ben zachar. Of course I want a son." Oh my God! And I'm thinking, wow, this is where I'm stripping away my limitations of finite. This is Gevalt. And then he says to me something like, "רק תביא לי 600 שקל וקח 2 ספרים. Give me 600 shekel and I take a sefer or 2. It's like, oh my God, please. I probably would have given you, if I had 600 shekel, if you didn't ask for it right now. You know what I mean? I was like, why? Why do you have to say that? It was so perfect, you know? And I realized, like, I was thinking, wow, you meet people, you think for a second, then you hit the wall, and you're like, this could have been the highest, because then he started giving me conditions of having a ben zachar. Like, he started giving me conditions if I really want a son or not, and I was like, oh my God, so please don't ask me if, you know. It got a little more weirder. I'm not going to share what else happened over there. I did take one book. He wanted me to come with a truck and empty out the whole machzan. Mamish, honestly, that library is worth hundreds of thousands of shekels, maybe even dollars. Hundreds of books that he said he's a shamus. He collects like old svarim in the shuk and nachlot area for 25 years, and now he finally has to give it up somehow. I said, Lama? He's like, Al tishal sheilot. I said, why? He said, don't ask any questions. So I said something was really shady. It started getting shady. The more I asked, the more I was like, this is really shady. And I was like, listen, thank you. He's like, and he wouldn't let me go till I made him. I actually had to promise him 3 things regarding Shalom Bayis. It was very weird. It was a whole weird thing. Mom, it's nuts. And then afterwards, he's like, Kach ta kesef shelcha. He's like, take back the money. It wasn't 600 shekels. He's like, take this back. I'm like, absolutely not. He's like, Kach. I'm like, why? He's like, I want you to come back with a truck and really take everything, and then you'll really have. It was very bizarre. But why am I saying this? Because I feel like sometimes we're so inclined to have these high moments, and we're so drawn to and then you hit the wall, and you're like, I wish I didn't open up my infinite because it hurts. Because now it actually does hurt. And I walked away. It was such a weird few minutes, and it seemed like forever.
But you said it yourself. But you said that we really have this. Like everything, there's walls everywhere. You can't be without the walls.
Everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everything and everywhere.
Well, I don't think it was like that with the Rebbes 100 years ago. I think Reb Nosson didn't have any walls with Reb Nachman. He writes about this too, and I'm not making it up. I mean, I'm saying Reb Tzadok didn't have any walls with the Ishbitzer when they first met too. Reb Tzadok, when he first was that Shabbos with the Ishbitzer. I don't know. Today for sure.
I was thinking about me and Reb Shlomo.
You're not an example for anything that has to do with Olam Hazeh stuff. And you know that, and I've warned you to not say anything because you're not an example for anything. You know that. You teaser. You're such a tease. You're such a tease. I love you so much. In a good way. In the best, highest way in the world. Okay. Now look what he says here. This is a beautiful glimpse into Reb Shlomo's life. Take me, for example. Here I'm 14, 15, 16, 17. This is when he was talking about his teenage years. I'm on the crossroads. Should I be a misnagid like my father? Or should I be a chassid like Lubavitch, Bobov, Kloisenberg? Give out. Not so simple. Took me years to decide. And now look what he says here. Maybe I haven't even decided yet. I want you to know it's not so simple. To make it more personal, here I'm learning by Reb Aaron. He's talking about Reb Aaron Kotler in Lakewood. Mamish, the biggest gaon in the world. And then I'm connected to Lubavitch, the biggest tzaddik in the world. Sadly enough, it's like milchiks and fleishiks. They don't go together. Right? So first of all, why don't they go together? Now look what he says here. This is a glimpse to understanding Reb Shlomo. Okay, this is a very important nakuda here. So first of all, why don't they go together? If they would both be infinite, they would both go together. Because when it comes to infinite, everything fits. This is so deep. So let's say I was sitting by Reb Aaron and I'm knocking my head against the wall, against that wall. I'm coming to Lubavitch and after a while I'm knocking my head against this wall and that wall. Then suddenly I realize maybe it's neither, maybe it's both of them, I don't know. Now, I want you to know in another recording, Reb Shlomo said, it was right before he died, he said, you know, till today, I'm really not sure if the way you live your life is Reb Mordechai Ishbitzer or it's Reb Nachman Breslover, he said. He said, at the end of the day, I'm still not sure, but I think that it's just more for our door to be Reb Nachman, he said. Never said this. But the bigger the neshama, the much harder it is to really be labeled under anything. You know, anything. It's such a struggle. You know, someone gave me such a mussar a few weeks ago. And I always pray that I'm able to take it. I always pray that like once in my life I could live that Torah of Rabbi Nachman of Yishma Bizyono Yidon Ve'ishtok, that a person hears his own disgrace and Imam shuts up. I always pray like one day I'll be able to hear it. I'm trying, Baruch Hashem. There's plenty of it. People love me. People love you, but people like to knock us also, right? So someone really gave it to me so hard. He said, you can't do anything, and you really, unless you're totally mevutal to this tzaddik, he said to me, unless you're totally mevutal to any tzaddik, you can't really be anything, because you have to have that one way. He said, I'm saying this out of love and out of bigness. He said, you can't. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? You don't even know how painful it is to not be able to find one way. And I said to him, and I'm speaking in the name of thousands of my friends, not hundreds, thousands of my friends, who wish that they can find infinity and finiteness in one derech. But it's a different ballgame after the 6 million. So, wow, we haven't even started. I can't believe this. Let's go. Okay, so but having said all of that, this, just remember, what is this building on? It's building on the first pasuk, the first half of the pasuk in the Haftarah. B'nei, this is amazing. Everything we did now was based on like 8 words. V'haya mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol hayam asher lo yimod v'lo yisafer. What's our number? What's our finite? Infinite. I shared with the Chevra on Monday night. When Reb Shlomo put out the album Days Are Coming, which was I think approximately 1978-79, he was asked in an interview, how many songs have you composed? Now the truth is, by then, there were a lot in the bank. In those years in the 70s, it was coming down like wildfire all day, all the time. And he said, you know, brother, anything you put a number on becomes finite. And he would not give a number or an estimate to what the number, how many songs he had. Because the nigunim are the most infinite thing in the world. You're going to put a number on it? You know, when this is documented, when the Alter Rebbe came to meet Reb Nachman, they met twice, the Alter Rebbe and Rabbi Nachman. It's amazing. What would we do to be a fly on the wall in that? The Alter Rebbe and Reb Nachman, just saying it. No, isn't it crazy that those two worlds, the Tanya and Likutei Moharan, met each other twice? Amazing, it's just amazing. So Reb Nachman said to the Alter Rebbe, he says, is it true that you have you're Sarei Alafim, Sarei Me'ot? Like, because he heard the Lubavitch was already growing big numbers. Alter Rebbe already, he took things to the next level. And it started growing tremendously. And he said, is it true that you are the Rav of Sarei Alafim, Sarei Me'ot? And Alter Rebbe just said to him, he said, and Alter Rebbe had such cover for the Baal Shem Tov's great-grandson. It was unbelievable, the cover that the Alter Rebbe had for Reb Nachman. And vice versa, but really the Alter Rebbe was Yira out of the Baal Shem Tov's great-grandson. So Alter Rebbe says, well, I don't know exactly, but a lot of our students have their own students, and they have their own students. And he just kept it in the world of infinite. It's like, it's a yam, it's like a sand. It's like, yeah, there's a lot. I don't know how much, I have no idea, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Okay. Now open your hearts, friends, because until now they were closed, right? I don't know how you could understand one word here if your heart. Like, I'm learning from inside. Now here he quotes, this is Ashgacha, is one of our favorite Sfarim in the world. This is a Torah from the Tiferes Yosef, which he rarely quoted from. He rarely learned out of. The Tiferes Yosef, the Heilige Tiferes Yosef, is the son of the Baal Atcheles. Who's the Baal Atcheles? Baal Atcheles is the Sod Yesharim, right? It's the first Radziner. It's the grandson of the Mea Shilach, the son of the Beis Yaakov. So this is the great grandson of the Ishbitzer. Very important sefer he has called Tiferet Yosef. It's one of my favorite svarim. It's very kedai to get it. Remember Zusha, we started learning years ago. Years ago. One of the best svarim in the world. Yeah. There's a lot of new versions now. Tiferet Yosef, very important sefer. Very important. Now look what he says. What did we do for 40 days in the desert? Obviously, we paved the way till Mashiach is coming. Because Gevalt, did we fix the world? Gevalt, did we fix ourselves? This is very important to understand. Those years in the Midbar, which in a weird way, it's really all of Sefer Bamidbar and Vayikra and Dvarim, but 38 years out of the 40 take place in one parsha. It's a very weird thing. 40 years in the desert, 38 years take place in one parsha in Sefer Bamidbar, Parshat Chukat. It starts with the Parah Aduma, the parsha where Miriam dies, Aaron dies, Moshe hits the rock, Sichon Melech Heshbon. There's all this crazy stuff going on there. The Nachashim, the plague of the snakes, a lot of stuff. But really, those 40 years he's saying over here, they did much more than just a journey in the desert. And every year, as we're going towards our Sinai and then continuing our own desert, we're picking up on the energy. This is important. We're picking up on the energy of the avodah that was done during those years in the desert. Okay, we're connecting very strongly to what was taking place during those years in the desert. So the Heilige Ishbitzer says, when he says now, for the rest of the teaching, when he says the word Ishbitzer, he's referring to the son of the Baal Atcheles, he's referring to the Tiferes Yosef. His name was, the Radziner, the second Radziner. His name was, like his great-grandfather, Mordechai Yosef Elazar. Just add the name Elazar, he's the Ishbitzer. Just like you should know, when Reb Shlomo says, Reb Nachman says, we've spent so many hours looking for Rabbi Nachman saying this, and he doesn't say it. It's Reb Nassan saying it. But he always felt that when Reb Nassan opened his mouth, it's Rabbi Nachman. So he says, Reb Nachman says, it's in Likutei Halachos all the time. It's really beautiful. God bless you. The Heilige Ishbitzer says that, sorry about the typo, the most infinite place in the world is the desert. You can do what you want to. Go where you want to. You know how deep this is? In this world, when I go right, I'm going to Chicago. When I go left, I'm going to New York. So try to figure out where he was, right? Philly, yeah. In the desert, there's no north and no left. It's garnished. In this world, I go south, I'm going to Miami. I'm going north, I'm going to Boston. I'm in the desert. it doesn't make a difference. You can go south, you can go north, you get nowhere. So he says the deepest depths is, do you know what we have to do? You and I have to take this infiniteness and put it in the Torah. What does this mean? Do you realize how deep this is? So hard to just realize that it's the most simple thing in the world, but it's so mind-blowing deep. You know what? I'm letting him. I don't want to confuse it. Let's go a few more lines. But remember, the Torah, the Midbar, is the most infinite place in the world because there's no limits of borders or directions. It's nothing. It's a Midbar. It's a desert. It's open. It's desolate. There's nothing. And the Torah, which is so infinite, is all part of the desert, but the whole inyan is making the Torah infinite in our lives. Taking infinity and putting it to my concept of the Torah. You know what drove Reb Shlomo nuts? Is people that looked at the Torah and all they did was see borders. It drove him nuts. The whole thing was, how do I look at the borders the Torah gives me? They gave me borders, directions, a manual to become infinite. Not a manual to remain within limitations and borders. The Torah is a manual for my neshama to become infinite. Vaya mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol haya. It's the same thing. It's the same word in the Haftarah. Now look what he says here. The Tiferes Yosef says that there are certain talents inside of me, and mamish, I cannot master them. There are certain things which come easy to do, and then there are certain things deep within us, which is mamish like infinite electricity. Let's put it this way. Maybe I don't have trouble passing by a non-kosher restaurant and not going in. I don't know if that's the hardest thing anymore for certain people, right? But there are certain parts of my life where I mamish can't master it. It really is a desert. There's nothing there. I have no signs of where to go. I have no signs of how to get over what I have to get over. Nothing. Nothing. I have nothing. You know, to stop eating kosher is a very, as someone who never really, I grew up from, so I can't say, oh, it's not so easy, it's not so hard. It probably is very hard, depending where you're living. But what he's saying is that to not eat kosher, you don't need to connect to infinity to stop eating kosher. But to fix one midah of your neshama, to cleanse yourself from anger, or for anything that you know lies within the hidden chambers of your heart, that's the hardest thing in the world. It really is a desert. So when the Yidden walked around the desert, you know what they did? Look what he says here. What were we doing in the desert? They paved a way. They paved a way to become masters of the desert. What do masters of the desert mean? It means that I find a way to become infinite in a place where I can't see anything happening. You know, friends, that part of me which I cannot master, this is the part of me which is not connected to God. I can't get it together. I just can't get it together. Do you know what the Yidden did when they walked around in the desert? They opened gates for us, that even that part of me, meaning that part of me that I can't get together, that I can't find God in, is also connected to God. This is a classic, this is a yesod, this is a fundamental inyan in Ishbitz. We look at ourselves, are we godly people? Most of the time, you know, we have a lot of issues, but yeah, we're godly. But then what about those dark places? Oh, I don't want to go there. That stuff has got to go. There's no room for any of that in my life. The Ishbitzer says, you know what the whole thing of Mashiach coming into the world is? The Mashiach's going to show you. Reb Shlomo had a great example when he once taught Parshat Vayigash, Miketz Vayigash in 1979. He says, when Mashiach comes, it's going to be clear to us that every Yidla that was honking his horn on a Friday night sitting in his car was honking his horn to wake someone up and say to them, can you please explain to me how Shabbos is connected to my life? will see that everyone that looked like they were disconnected, and all the parts in me which seemed like they were desolate, desert, Hashem was there too. Everything, every area, everything. Just like the revelation of Yosef to his brothers, where they thought they were standing behind an Egyptian ruler who wanted to kill them. And the Ishbitzer says, when Mashiach comes, we're going to look at all our enemies, and they're going to remove their mask and say the same words. Ani Yosef, ha'od avi chai, meaning, it's me, Hashem. Am I still alive in you? In that area that you thought was completely disconnected? Friends, I want you to open your heart. Every word is so deep. When am I lost? When I think that even God can't help me. That's what it means to be lost in this world, Reb Shlomo says. When I think that even God can't help me. Even the Torah can't help me. Nobody can help me, that's it. Face it, I keep Shabbos, I keep a few things, but there are certain things I just can't keep. Certain things I can't do. It's my desert. It's a certain thing that I can't. I'll try everything. But certain things, I can't do them. I can't conquer. But I'm sure you know that the deepest depths of life is to know that even in the desert, friends, please look inside if you have it. But I'm sure you know, that's the paragraph beginning, but I'm sure you know that the deepest depths of life is to know that even in the desert, when you find yourself in the desert, even there God can show you a way. God can lead you out of the desert to the Holy Land. Now this is important. Again, it might take 40 years. It doesn't go so simple. It's not so simple. You don't push a button. You see, that part of us which is not the desert, I just decide that I keep Shabbos from now on, I eat kosher from now on. That's not the desert we're talking about. What about that desert part? What about that wild, infinite part of me which I don't know how to handle? Look at these words, that wild, infinite part of me which I don't know how to handle. You know what Reb Shlomo was saying? So like Reb Ravender always answered that question saying, A, I don't know. I don't know what Reb Shlomo was saying. He would always learn a Rashi. Reb Ravender says, so what's Rashi saying? Two answers. One, I don't know. B, I still don't know, but I'll give it a shot. So I don't know what he's saying here. I can just share my heart. And I'd love to hear your hearts as well. But Reb Shlomo is saying over here something that, like, this is, when you learn this, you have to work with this. You don't just learn this in a shir and be like, let me share it at a Shabbos table. It'll sound Chinese to somebody. You give this over as a vort. This is avoda. This is work. This is the work of the neshama. This is the work of the soul. Those things which you can see, not eating kosher, Shabbos, dressing more tznius, those things are not the desert kind of things that we're talking about. We're talking here about those things which nobody can see, those things which enable you to fool and deceive anybody in the world, including yourself. Those things that you know need utmost work on, that nobody can see. Rak ata, only you. Those things, to take that, doesn't take God, it doesn't take believing in God, really, to take on Shabbos once you tasted Shabbos. You know what it takes, God in a desert, in those places that you think you can never, ever, ever reach and conquer. And for each of you in this room, and for each person in the world, it's something different. It's the beauty of individuality. I don't know what it is. I barely even know my own shtick, right? I'm only beginning to know my own shtick. Okay, here it comes again. We're going to finish this up, Bezrat Hashem. When you're in the desert, how much do you cry for someone to give you a map? This is so beautiful, huh? How much do you cry for someone to give you a map? And this is the deepest depths, friends. There are certain things that I daven for, and God answers me. Shachas Mincha Ma'ariv, right? There are certain things in my life that unless I cry like I'm in the desert, it's the only way to daven. There is no other way. Because for God to answer this prayer has to come from the deepest depths of me. He's saying something very important. Some people say, look, I'm not built to be like those guys, those Hasidim that scream and cry for an hour. That's not who I am. You know what you're saying when you do that? You're saying, if I'm stuck in a desert, I could never really find a way out because it's just not me to really cry out to God. That's basically what you're saying about yourself. It's not me to ask for help. I do my thing. God answers me. To ask for help? You don't just say, okay, Hashem, I need some help getting out of here. To really answer a prayer of getting a sign in the desert is just bechi yatzuk, crying in Hashem out, crying rivers. You know, I've had the schus of being with people right after the biggest transformation in their life. It's a cloud. The same thing happened. Each person who went through the greatest transformation reached the same place. What was that place called? Crying to Hashem. Not just asking deeper or staying in shul. Okay, today I'm going to stay 5 minutes longer. Anything with a number is finite. Crying is infinite. Infinite. Let's make it on a very simple level. I go to Baron Rothschild. Now, do you know who Baron Rothschild was? He was like, I don't know who you compare it to today. Any NBA player, okay? Anyone that has millions of dollars, okay, basically. I go to Baron Rothschild, give me $1,000. Doesn't have to be such a gewalt reason. You need $1,000. You don't have to come up with a grosse, such a huge reason as to why you need $1,000. I go up and I ask for, sorry, this should just be $100 million. It better be something important. Like, you never go for a sales pitch for real unless you mamish know what you're asking for. When I ask God to make me a way in my desert, it better be something deep, meaning you better know what you're asking for, and it better be coming from the all of you, from mamish the all of you. You know how deep this is? So again, the Haftarah says, "B'makom asher yomar lahem lo amiatem." Not that someone else tells me, but I tell myself, just face it. That's the Baruch Hashem, we got it. Just face it, you won't make it. Mamish, like the prophet says, Yomar Elokeichem b'ni keil chai. I am a son of God, and I am worthy of asking God to show me a sign in the desert of my life. I want you to know something so deep. And this is a bracha to everyone. If I would like to know how much my children know that I'm their father, so they ask me for orange juice, they can ask the maid. They ask me for $10, they can ask anybody. When they ask me for something impossible, and they know mamish, my father will do it for me, our connection hits me so strong. Chavre, kdoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani, be holy because I'm holy. The Ishbitzer says, Kadoshim means be ready for me because I'm always ready for you. You know what this means? Do you know how you understand when you're in a God relationship? When you're willing to ask God for that which you can't even fathom ever achieving. Of course, also when you ask for orange juice. But you really could ask orange juice from anybody. To give you a sign in the desert, only the Ribbon Shlomo. It's like something happens between me and Hashem when I ask, when I cry. What happens? My father becomes my father, but deeper than that. I finally realize that I'm a son of God. B'ni kel chai is what I say to myself. I'm a son of the living God. But when does it become clear to me that I'm actually a son of God? When I cry. And when I ask Hashem, when I realize I'm stuck here, and I can't see any way out. I can't see anything. There are people, chevra, that go through this every day. They wake up, and they ask, the first question is, how could you still keep me here in this desert? But what's God waiting for? That when we wake up in the desert, we say, I know that you're the only one who can show me a sign as to how to get out of here. It's just a matter of perception of how am I asking? How am I talking to God? When bad things happen, you can either say, where are you? Or you could say, Ribbono Shel Olam, how does your name become greater in the world from this? It's all in the way you ask that question. It's all it comes down to. So the bottom line here, look at this last line. Do you know when God is letting us know that we are the children of the living God? Only when we ask Him for a way in the desert. This is when it happens. This inyan of B'ni Bechori Yisrael, whatever we were supposed to feel on Pesach, that we're God's children, loved, cared for, all of that only happens when I receive the Torah in the desert, when I'm walking through the desert. That's when it all takes place. So good luck trying to give this over at someone's Shabbos table, you know. Enough is enough. We have the greatest Torah in the world. We have all the tzaddikim in the world. We have the greatest teachers in the world. Enough. Everything's on the plate for us to become infinite. Everything is right here. There's only one thing that's up to us. Only one thing. Are you willing to cry out for help or not? God didn't design the world in a way that everything is given to you, and if you can't see it, that's your problem. It shows how low you are. God designed the world in a way that everything is given to us in front of our eyes, but if you don't cry to God to show me a sign, you have nothing. What is chus to go into Shavuos with this Torah? Ashreinu shezachinu. We should have the highest yantiv, a real Kabbalah Satorah, and be real super strong friends for ourselves. And let's end off these last 2 weeks, fire. Yashar koach, everyone. Thank you for coming.